And for those that are watching, I'm Elise Finney. I'm the Director of Business Growth for Argent Bridge Advisors. And I'm joined today by Erin Kidd with a firm called Thompson Greenspun, which is a CPA firm in Fairfax, Virginia. And Erin is the Tax Individual Program Manager, and she's an enrolled agent and an accredited financial counselor. And Erin is also one of our regular speakers on our webinar called Done with Divorce. So, what happens if somebody has like a 50-50 in their agreement?
So there's always a custodial parent. There's always a place where the child has spent the most number of nights. So aside from a leap year, every year is an odd number year. So there's going to be at least one night, extra night that child is at that person's house. Mm-hmm. Generally, your agreement will say, like, you may have 50-50 custody. Often they say whether or who's going to claim the child. And if it's not posted, then you want to make sure that that's addressed in there. But claiming custody of a child and actually having a dependency exemption for the child, which is part of that, what they're talking about generally in your agreement, versus being the actual custodial parent who has the most number of nights and who qualifies for head of household. You want to be careful, and I think you probably want to have some clear communication. Frequently there's a disparity in married couples, and when they divorce, someone generally has sacrificed a little bit maybe, and it has shouldered a little bit more of that parenting burden, or the child lives in their house because they go to school in the particular school district. So then you've got that. So I would say the one who's receiving child support, if that's the case, is most likely meeting that custodial parent rule. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a race to the finish, right? Who filed first? Because you can claim head of household and release your dependency exemption so that the non-custodial parent could claim the child tax credit and the dependent care credit. Let's say if they're paying child care. Mm-hmm. But head of household status and earned income credit can also still be claimed for the custodial parent. So it can get a little messy, and it's awkward sometimes as a preparer to start asking these kinds of questions, right? Because you don't want to kind of poke the wound a little bit, but it's really important to do that financially. It can make a big difference on your tax return.
But I think in a perfect scenario, it would be something that's discussed, during the separation, so that they kind of know who's going to be filing what beforehand.
Right. So I've seen it lots of times in there where it says, wife will claim children, even number years, husband will claim children, odd number years. But that doesn't answer your custodial parent question. That's just the dependency exemption and child tax credit question, which is much more valuable now than it used to be. It's $2,000 per child under the age of 17. And the income bracket, you phased out pretty quick, not being able to take that credit. It's a lot bigger now. So that head of household status, so if nobody remarries, and then it's different. Like once your divorce is final, you're either single or head of household. That's if you have kids, you're either single or head of household. So, but just because you get to claim the dependency exemption does not mean you're head of household. That's where we see a lot of mistakes happen, I think, and not intentionally, just inadvertently people make that mistake.
But definitely the biggest takeaway is to have a conversation with your CPA as you are writing out your agreements.
Yeah, absolutely. Take those things into consideration. Your return may get rejected. You would have to paper file. And as we've seen, paper filing is just a nightmare. So having that conversation, knowing that the questions that your CPA or your enrolled agent are asking are not because they want to rip that wound open. It's because they're looking out for your best interest. They want to make sure that it is being done correctly, that you're receiving all the tax benefits that you're entitled to, that you won't have difficulties down the road. So those are, once there are kids in the equation, that's where that filing status question comes. If there are no kids, then it's married filing jointly or married filing separately if you're still legally married at the end of the year. Once you're divorced, you're single. If there are children, then that head of household comes into play.
Yeah.